Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our October webinar. Today we have three presenters talking about three different topics and tools that should be very useful to both admins and developers. So it should be a great webinar today. As always, this is being recorded, and the recording will be put up on the OpenNTF website. So with me today as co-host is Graham Akers, our chairman of OpenNTF, and our presenters will be Julian Robichaux, Andre Guirard, and John Curtis. Afterwards, we'll do questions and answers from our presenters. Before we get started, I'd like to thank two companies in particular. A lot of people do help OpenNTF be a success, but these two companies have made pretty substantial financial donations. HCL has helped fund webinars like this and contests and running OpenNTF. And as far as running OpenNTF, all the IT-related infrastructure is donated by Prominic. So thank you to both companies. Again, this is, we are a volunteer organization. Everyone is a volunteer on the board. We don't have any paid staff. So there's always projects that need some work, even if you don't code them. There's testing, documentation, our website, all sorts of stuff that could be done. Also, don't forget, I know we were talking about this yesterday in our board meeting, we have something called snippets, which is little sections of little bits of code or maybe some little text file or something, kind of short, simple, very easy to put up on our OpenNTF site. So if you got something that you use a lot, share it with the community. Okay, our next webinar, we're going to talk about Heiko Voigt. He's going to talk about KeyCloak, which is an identity management tool, and how he integrates that with Domino. Please join in. You can get more information at the OpenNTF website. The URL's on the screen.
And maybe just a quick note about the November webinar. Because of U.S. Thanksgiving, we're moving it up, and because of the factory tour in Milan, so it's going to be early November as opposed to later November when we would normally do it.
Yes, thanks, Graham. I didn't put the date on here, but it's November 10th at the usual time, whatever time this is in your time zone. But all the information is up, and you can now register on GoToWebinar as well. Graham, you want to talk about this?
Right. So in December, we've done this now a couple of times. So rather than a regular webinar, we're going to do just a community happy hour where we can get together. And I think the words that I used yesterday were an online virtual holiday hug. So that's going to come up in December, and we'll post times. But our thinking is that we kind of target for Asia Pacific an evening hour, knowing full well that that covers a whole bunch of different time zones, and then a European happy hour, and then a North American happy hour. So details will be forthcoming.
Okay, thanks, Graham. Okay, so asking questions. First question that everyone has is, will this be recorded? And as I mentioned already, it will be recorded. We'll put it up on YouTube. And the link to YouTube, if you don't want to write down what's on the screen right now real quick, is on the webinars page. We have an index of all our previous webinars going back the last couple of years, and links to the recordings and questions that were asked, and if applicable, the presentations that these speakers had. So that's a great resource. For today, ask your questions with the questions pane in GoToWebinar. There's a picture of that on the being presented. At the end of all three presentations, the speakers will answer your questions verbally. So we will get to your questions at the end, probably somewhere a little afternoon, 12:15 or so at the latest. Again, please keep your questions related to the topics that our three speakers are talking about. If you have something unrelated, just post it on our Discord channel. Just a reminder, we don't use Slack anymore. So the link to Discord is on the screen. Please join us there. Okay, our first presenter is Julian Robichaux. He's going to talk about the document properties plugin. Julian, I'm going to make you the presenter. And we see your screen.
All right. Oh, good. And I took myself off mute. So there we go. All right. So I got 15 minutes, huh? I'm going to go ahead and turn on a timer just so I don't go too far over. I have 42 slides, but that's actually only because I was too chicken to do a live demo. And so I have a bunch of screenshots of stuff I would normally just sort of show you live. But the nice thing about that is that way you can kind of make it easier to keep up. That being said, document properties plugin. So, you know, when you right click a document and then do properties and you get that little kind of tiny squarish info box. So, you know, that's been there in Notes forever, and it's a great way of looking at fields and some document information and things, but it was always a little bit limiting to me because it was kind of small and there wasn't a good way to export information and you couldn't really search things. And so it was something that kind of, you know, bothered me at a very low level for long enough to where I'm like, you know, I might be able to write something that sort of reproduces that. So I did. And I wrote an Eclipse plugin that has some sort of quality of life improvements over the standard document properties dialog. So it's resizable, you can search for things, you can sort for things, a bunch of other things like that. So I made it for me for the most part, and also for some of the guys I work with in Panagenda who also were asking for something like that. But also on the Domino Ideas website, that was like the second most popular request for a long time on that website, was to kind of enhance the properties window. So I guess I wasn't the only one who wanted that. To take a look at it, generally to just kind of open it up once it's installed, you can either right click a document in a view and do advanced properties, document properties, or you can, with a view document selected, you can go to File, Advanced Properties, Document Properties, or you can do File, Application, Advanced Properties, Document Properties, or if you have a document open, you can right-click the document and do Advanced Properties, Document Properties, or with the document open or selected, you can just do Control-Alt-L. Now I have all of those different options because I just wanted to put it everywhere that you already have a document properties menu. So those were all the places where the document properties menu was before. So I stuck the advanced document properties menu in all of those places too. Lots of options. And it looks like this. So the default tab on this is the Fields tab. For the info box, the default tab gives you some information about the document, which I always switch right over to the Fields tab anyway. So I'm like, let's just make the Fields tab the default. So you kind of get a list of fields and some information about everything in a table. You can also view the entire contents of the field over on the right-hand pane. If you want, if you have a document open in the tab, you also get some computed text. So obviously the computed text doesn't exist until you open the document. So something in a view doesn't get that, but if the document's open, you do. There's also an info tab that has dates and node IDs and un-IDs and URLs and things. The nice thing about this is you can actually copy it and paste it to the clipboard if you need it for later. So it's a really easy way to get like the un-ID of a document or the node ID or the database replica ID or something like that. There's also an attachments tab, and then if you have attachments on your document, then it lists the attachments as you would expect it to. As I mentioned before, it's resizable, so here's a bunch of different sizes of the dialog. But not only the entire dialog is resizable, but also the pane over on the right-hand side that shows the information about the field. You can drag that left and right. You can also resize the columns if the columns are too skinny or too wide for your tastes. Some things you can do in terms of sort of playing with the fields that are on there. You can sort everything by any of the columns that are visible. So if you, in this example, click on the top of the size column, it sorts everything by size. Kind of interesting if you have a really big document, you want to find out what the giant fields are that are making it big. The data type, that's kind of useful to sort by sometimes too. If you're looking for authors fields or readers fields, you can sort by data type and then find all the authors or readers fields pretty easily. So that's kind of nice. You can search in the search bar, and anything you type in the search bar will filter the table for fields that have that term or that letter combination in the field name or the field value. And since the field values are displayed as text, that means if you have date fields, you can search for specific dates in the date fields too. So that's kind of a nice way of finding information you're looking for within a document. You can also copy the information pretty easily. This is actually not too dissimilar from the info box. So you can just select everything over in the right-hand pane and copy it to the clipboard and paste it somewhere later. Or you can export the stuff as CSV. So if you select one or more rows in the table of fields, then you can use the copy menu and you can copy the selected or all rows as CSV to your clipboard, paste it into Excel, and do whatever Excel-ish stuff you like to do. In 1202, I also added a couple new options for exporting either just the field names, just the field values, or all of the stuff that you see in that right-hand info pane. You can copy that to the clipboard now too. Another thing that I really wanted to add to this and was able to, and it's kind of one of those things helpful for me, but probably helpful for other people too, is that you can compare documents. So if you have two documents selected in a view, then you now get the compare selected documents option in the advanced properties menu. And when you do that, it gives you a larger dialog box, also resizable, just in case. And that shows both documents side by side. The fields are color coded, so anything in green is a field that doesn't exist in the other document in the pane. The ones that are yellow are different, and the ones in white are the same. So that's helpful for me. Another way that you can do this, though, is if you right-click any document in a view and do Advanced Properties Compare Later, then what you can do is select another document at some other point in time, and you'll get a new menu that's Compare With that document you did for Compare Later. Now, the cool thing about this is that you can compare two documents that are in different databases by doing this. So if you have like two copies or even two replicas of the same database, you can right-click a document in one database, Compare Later, and then switch to the other database and do Compare With, and you can actually look at those two documents side by side as well. A couple other bonus features that I got for you. You can look at profile documents. So if you have profile documents in your database, then you can do Advanced Properties Profile Documents from a view or a document and get a list of the profile documents there. One kind of fun thing that you can do with this is if you have a setting in a database that you know is stored in a profile document somewhere, but you're not sure where, then you can make the change and then look at the profile documents dialog and sort by last modified. So if you click that last modified column, it'll sort them by last modified, and you can see which profile document was just changed at the time that you made your change. And then you can open it up, just kind of select it, click OK, or double click it, and then you'll get the normal document properties dialog that you saw before, and you can search for stuff and list things and export things and do all that. You can also open multiple dialogs at once. So the classic info box is just the little square that always changes every time you switch documents. Here you can make it static, so you can open up properties for one document, then another document, then another, and you can have hundreds of these things all over your screen if you'd like. So they are persistent in terms of which document that you've selected the properties for, unless you click the Follow Document Selections checkbox. And if you do that, then the dialog automatically updates every time you switch documents. So if you select a different document in the view, then you get the fields all get updated and the info gets updated and stuff within this dialog. And you can check and uncheck that box at any time you'd like. If you are an administrator, I got some nice little INI values for you. If you don't want your users to have this, then you can set the notes INI value of ADV prop menu visible. Just set that to 0 with your favorite technique for setting notes INI variables. and then the users will never see that advanced properties menu at all. They won't see it in the right-click menu, you won't see it in the main menu, even the Control-Alt-L just won't work. If you want to hide it just in the mail view, which is kind of the default for the info box, then you can set mail visible in mail view to 0. If you want to just hide the compare later menu for some reason, you can do that. You can also hide the profile documents menu. So don't give users the ability to look at profile documents if that's your thing. Speaking of profile documents, you can use an INI setting, profile allow delete. You can set that to 1. So by default, you don't get a delete button, but if you set this INI value to 1, you do get a delete button when you see all the profile documents, so you can very easily delete a profile document that you don't like. So I know sometimes as administrators and developers, we have to do that when we're testing. So there's an easy way to do that with the dialog. You can also set profile show all to 1. By default, it only shows you profile documents that either belong to you or that don't belong to anyone, essentially, because there's like a key value for a profile document that can be a username. If you have show all, then it'll show you the profile documents for all users in the database that you are allowed to see. Last INI setting is hotkey enabled, so you can disable the hotkey, that Control-Alt-L to open the dialog. And I did that because we got some bug reports early on that people with, I think, Polish keyboards were having problems because the right Alt key on Windows keyboards is actually the Alt-GR key on some foreign language keyboards, or non-English keyboards. I shouldn't say foreign language, that's rude. The Alt-GR key has been used for many, many years to do special characters that aren't already on the keyboard. And so there was a conflict. And there's no good way to change the hotkey, unfortunately, not dynamically anyway. But I gave you the ability to turn it off. So if you have a Polish keyboard, I think a Latvian keyboard, and maybe a Czech keyboard, I think those are the ones that were kind of causing some conflicts. You can just turn it off. And I did make some code changes internally to try to avoid that. So starting with 1202, there shouldn't be a conflict anyway. But anyway, if you need to turn that off, there's an INI setting for you. There's a link here too with some other administrative options that might be handy for you as an admin. All right, so if you like it, how do you get it? Let's see. If you have Notes 1201 or later, there is nothing extra you have to do. So this is included with the standard client in Notes 1201 and higher. It's already there. It's just, you just have to right-click and use it. If you have an older client, then there's a link here for info.panagenda.com/en/document properties, and you can download it. It works on Windows and Mac. I've also tested it on the Windows 64 client, which has been in beta for about a year or so. Works on that too. And when I do new releases, I actually test all the way back to Notes 901. So this should work for you for some older versions of Notes too. If you need to install it on an older client, just download the zip file from that link I just showed you, and then you can either drag and drop it onto your My Widgets panel, or you can extract it to a Domino update site and then distribute it as a plugin or a widget that way. You can use your widget catalog. And there's a lot more detailed instructions at the link at the bottom of this slide too. So it's more step-by-step, like here's how you set it up if you've never done this before. But it's really the same as any other plugin that you would distribute in a Notes client. So one other thing, but wait, there's one more thing. There's Document Properties Pro. As I was doing this, we kind of wanted the basic version of Document Properties for normal users. We also have a Document Properties Pro plugin that's an optional install. And if you go to that link that I showed you before for Document Properties and you download the zip file, that zip file gives you the option to install either basic Document Properties, which we just saw, or Document Properties Pro. And if you have 1201 or higher, you can still install it, still works, doesn't mess up the document properties plugin that's already there. On older clients, you can just install it straight out. And what that gives you is an edit button. Over above the info pane for a field, you can see you can create new fields, you can modify the selected field, you can delete a field, and you can copy and paste. Now, the cool thing about the copy and paste is that you can copy between documents. So you can copy a field from one document and paste it into another. So you got some edit options there if you are so inclined, and if you need that kind of power. Again, admins and developers, really that's something we need to do kind of a lot sometimes when we're testing. There are some caveats though. So notes ACL still matters. If you couldn't edit a document before, you still can't. Also, you can't sort of sneak a change in. The revisions and updated fields still get updated. So there's no chance that you're gonna kind of stealthily add something and no one will see your name on the document. Also, if you're in full admin access mode, it turns out that doesn't give you extra access for document properties. Not my fault, that's a Notes API thing, and that's just, sorry. Also, there's only certain field types you can see on the right-hand side here. There's only text, number, dates, names type fields, but that's most of the fields you want to mess with anyway. As Uncle Ben said, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you use this plugin, please use it wisely. Now, if you're an admin and you see that and you're like, oh, no, people shouldn't be doing this. I don't want my users to have this stuff. I have a Notes INI setting for that too. So if you set ADV prop no pro equals 1 in the user's Notes INI, even if they've installed Document Properties Pro, none of that extra stuff shows up. So there's no new edit menu. They can't do that kind of thing. So that's something you can do. But also, if you're worried about that kind of stuff, you should probably learn about the policies that prevent users from installing plugins anyway. And there's a lot of options with that in terms of widgets and plugins and stuff like that. So check those policies. And if you're really concerned about this sort of thing, then you should probably have that set. So anyway, I think my 15 minutes is up. It looks like I went to 16:59. So I think I'm still under 20. I'm good. And there's my last slide.
Right, there'll be a penalty, Julian. It's $1 for every minute.
Hold on. If I'm one of the people that voted for on the AHA site to do this.
Yeah.
If we were in person, Julian, at least me, I'd be giving you a standing ovation right now. That is absolutely brilliant stuff. And I'm using it already today, and it is absolutely fantastic. So well done, sir. Well done. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Excellent
you.
work.
And we got a couple of questions, and we'll get to those after the other presenters.
Okay.
So
I'll take a look I'll take a look during the other presentation, so I'll be ready for you.
Thanks so much. All right. Now we're going on to Andre. Andre, I'm going to make you the presenter.
All right.
And you should have the controls.
Oops, hang on. Probably the wrong screen.
Oops, I saw your screen. It disappeared.
Well, I'm trying to get it to show the right screen. What screen are you seeing?
CompareDBs Reports, like a full screen.
All right. Well, that's probably right then.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So this is my final big project that I did before retiring from HCL. So I'm pleased to get a chance to talk about it. This is something that we've needed for a while, I thought. So I'm going to talk about what this is, the different ways it can be used. I'm going to have a live demo, talk about how we integrate this with source code control systems, bug report systems, and that sort of thing. Some of the options that'll get the full functionality out of it. And of course, Q&A will be after everything else. What we've got is a tool that lets you either do a full design synopsis. So every option, with a very few exceptions, is represented in the information, and to take two versions of an application and compare them. And we needed this at HCL because we were trying to use source code control systems with our notes templates and finding that we were always having questions about who modified what when, how did this change get in, something happened that a change was made by accident, no one noticed because the testing didn't include that because that wasn't supposed to change, and so forth. All the usual things that you want to know when you're submitting code. So we developed this and started using it internally and refined it through that practice. The output of this tool is DXL, which is the Domino, the XML description of Domino data, but it's modified for readability. So it is not re-importable, it's not valid DXL, it's not even valid XML. It's intended for people to read. The comparison results are in the form of a report. And I'll show you an example in a second. It highlights the differences between the two sides and gives you a little bit of context to show where the change was. We're taking out information that you don't need for purposes of doing a comparison of how it works before versus how it works after. Things like timestamps, who modified it, options that don't apply in the situation, things of that nature. You store these reports so that you can search and see which fix a particular change was made in. So we're storing it in a notes application, and you can do full text index on that and just search for your terms and find out where was this view name introduced, or when was this form changed, by searching for the form alias. So again, it's intended for doing code reviews, for having a record of changes. If you've got a template from HCL and you've customized it, and HCL does a new release and you need to see, okay, what's different between the new release and your changes so that you can port the customizations over to the new template, there's a special function for that. And because we were doing a lot of translations, we also added features for checking the translations, for verifying which strings were translated, so we can look for over or under translations, things like that. This is an example of what the comparison report looks like. And you can see the DXL data here. This goes all the way across. This is same information provided for context. Here you can see that there's a difference between the old and the new version. The action bar background color was changed slightly. Here's another view, sightings by species, that has used to select all documents. That was wrong. Now it selects based on form equals citing. So this is an example. This goes on for as many changes as there are, and you'll see an example of that report. As I said, we're cleaning up the DXL, removing information that we don't care about for purposes of design synopsis and comparison. So all these timestamps, these are gone. Who it was signed by, when it was updated, we don't care. What we care about is how does it work, what does it look like? And this is all nicely indented, unlike all this which was crushed together. So this is reasonably easy to read. You can see here where there was a font change, etc. And I'm going to zoom in on some of these. So some of the things we did are just to make it shorter. So here we had run with a font element, and the font element seemed like a waste, especially because then it says, size equals something, face equals this, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just now one string. That's the font attribute of a run element. And that saves a little space. It makes it easier to read. Another example is in rich text. A lot of times you can get a situation where you have a string of text that's all the same formatting, but behind the scenes in the CD records, it's really two run records with the same formatting. And this is hard to read, so these are merged by default. Sometimes you do care about that. For instance, if the break was in the middle of a word, then you can get word wrapping in the middle of a word, and that's something you might want to fix in your application. So it is an option when you generate your report, if you know you made a change of that sort to prevent a bad word wrap, or if you're doing translations where if you use Domino Global Workbench, it matters where those breaks are or if there are breaks, because it'll generate a different type of key for the translators. And so you want to be able to see those. So you might have a special case for those. And I can show you how to create those special cases for repeat use later on. Another example is if you look at CD records again, you get paragraph definitions, and these are sequentially numbered. So the first time it encounters a paragraph with particular formatting, it's going to create a new paragraph definition and give it the next number. And then every time you use a paragraph with that formatting, it's going to refer back to that number. The problem with this is if you edit the form or whatever it is, and you change the formatting in one paragraph, that's going to result in a new paragraph definition, and all the sequential numbers for the subsequent paragraphs will change, which means you get dozens of changes in your document when you just change the formatting on one paragraph. And so what we did here is we changed the paragraph definition to a hash code that's based on the attributes of the paragraph, so that you don't see any changes unless there is an actual change in the formatting of that paragraph, in which case the def ID will be a different hash value. When you're using the tool, by default, you have three things you can do. There's a design synopsis, which takes as input a single database or template and generates a report of its design. Now, you may be familiar with the existing design synopsis that is woefully incomplete, very old. This is much better. It's as complete as we could make it using the information that's available in DXL, including things that are rendered as composite data records. Right now, if you're familiar with DXL, we understand what those mean, and we have put in readable options for those. The code review is used to compare two versions of a single application or template, and the update review is intended for you to use to compare an HCL template with your customized version of that template from a previous version. That's all that I just said. You can also add your own customized report. So if you have one that's specific for translations, for instance, you could add that in there. Or if you have some documents and you just want to compare documents and not design and only specific documents, then you can add something for that. And you can also customize the ones that are there if you don't like how they are. I'm switching to demo here and going to the notes client. Here we go. All right, so to demonstrate this, I created a simple application, which is a catalog of cryptid sightings. So you've got, see the profiles. Here are the things that we know about that you might cite, and here are the actual sightings. So not too complicated, just a few views. And we've got an older version of this as well, which doesn't look nearly as nice. Now, what I did to use this tool was I created a new NSF based on the CompareDBs Reports template from my server. I put it on local. Obviously, you can put this on the server as well, replicate it and share it. If you're working with the team, of course, you're going to want to do that. But you can just use it for personal use on your local as well. So I've got design reports. That was just the name I chose to give it. It could be code review reports or your team difference reports or whatever it is. I'm going to open this now so we can see how that looks. So here are the three options that I told you about. If you, as an administrator, I can go in here and look at the compare types, and it's these same three options. This navigation is created on the fly based on the contents of this view. So if I create a new configuration, it'll appear here. If it's to compare two things, then you can see it here. And if it's to just do a design synopsis of a specific type, then you can put it under, then you'll see it under the design synopsis. Okay, so let's just run a design synopsis first. To do that, I just click design synopsis. I have exported this one before, and so it remembers it, because chances are when you go in here, you're going to want to do the same thing again. But actually, let's export version 2 this time. You can overwrite an existing synopsis database, so unless you want to keep it, you can just use the same one over and over. It'll delete the contents and create new ones each time. And that's how fast it was. Again, it's not a super complicated application, but it contains, a few views, a few forms. If you look at the information in here, you notice it's categorized by the application title. We do this because it's possible to export more than one into the same design synopsis database, which is handy if you have a bunch of applications that work together, so that you can see where all of UNAME is used against across all the applications, that might reference each other, that sort of thing. If you look at the database information, you can see part of it here is all of the attributes of the database, the ACL entries, and also a list of how the design elements are signed, so that you can look for ECL issues. And just a note here, it says it's not looking at documents, so we don't know how the documents are signed. If there's a file-based design element, which could be the file design element, or an image, a style sheet, all these, if it's of a type that it understands how to render the contents in notes, it'll just render the contents. And you see here the header information as well, because besides the contents of a style sheet, you can also have design inheritance or other things like that that affect how it works. And so you might want to be able to see those as well. If it doesn't understand how to render the contents, it'll just attach the contents. There are also some design elements, such as jar files, where it knows that the attachment is not going to be any use either. And so it'll just put in a length and hash code, so at least you can tell if it changed. For an image, there are 4 images in this. One is the database icon. The images are displayed on 2 different color backgrounds, so that in case it doesn't show up well against one, you'll be able to see it against the other. It's being displayed too small. This is really quite a large image, so I'm going to report that as a bug. Fortunately, I don't have to be the one to fix it. All right, and then I'm going to have lost track of where I am. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to go back now to the design reports database. Again, though this is searchable, so I could go in here and just look for every occurrence of a view alias or whatever. And this is a lot faster than searching in Designer, and it's also more complete. So if you put in a template name and you want to see what all design elements inherit separately from that template, it won't show you that in Designer, because the file-based design elements, you're only searching the file data and not the header data. So be warned. All right, so in here, let's look at code reviews next. So the database saves a copy of the difference reports from previous submissions. So each of these corresponds to a fix in the source code control system. This is optional. Doing the source code control system integration, you don't have to. You can just store these for your personal reference. But generally, there's no point in storing it if you're not doing a submission. You could just look at it. So we can search the database if we want to find where we changed the profile form. We can search for profile, and here's where that happened. Well, here it is. And what was the change? There was a paragraph where the indentation was changed to left margin 1.25 instead of the default 1. And here you can see the hashed paragraph definition. FFFF is just the default formatting. If you look at the top of this, you can see that we have which repository this was in, and this could be a Git repository or whatever you have that has a web-based interface so that you can click here and actually view the fix record. This is not going to work for me because I don't actually have a Git repository. I made this up, but if you have one, then you can do that, and you can have multiple tasks or defect reports that are associated with the fix. A lot of times you'll submit a fix to a notes database. There's a bunch of stuff you're doing at once. So there could be a list, and you select the one you want to open and it opens it. This can be either a notes application or a web-based tool, and you can define both based on the formatting of the ID. It can figure out which it is and create the link appropriately. Some of the things we can see in here, like in the compare tool, or like in the synopsis, you can see who signed things so that you can tell if there's been an important change there. Here in the icon note, you can see that there's been a launch to frame set. Here's that same form change we saw earlier. And just generally like that, you can go down and look at each of these, and in a code review meeting, see what's what. You can also have the code reviews happen offline, and people can enter response documents with their comments. It's integrated with the same time if you want to. And if there are any added design elements, then you can see them here. Since this is a file-based design element, an image, you've got the header information in one file and you've got the actual image in the other file. Here it is. So that's attached to the report for your reference. So this integration with the source code control system is not direct. We obviously can link to it from here because we can calculate the URLs, but there was no way, at least for this first cut, to say go into Git and choose two versions of the application and say compare these and have it come up with a report like this. Maybe in the future we could do that, but for right now what we're doing is as a developer discipline thing. We're saying every time you do a submission to the Git, you must go in and create one of these reports, and not only that, but it must be in the local copy of your repository. One of them, the new version must be in your local Git view, because that way you know that it's the one that you're actually submitting and not some other file that you just think is the one you're actually submitting. But you create this and then you can get the link to it, because this is also a web-based application. So I can go in here and view it on the server, copy this link and paste that into the whatever source code repository I have into the description information, so you can say, see the difference report here. Click here and you can see it online, much the same as in Notes. And by the way, if you wanted to see it in Notes, you can do it here too. So it's a little helpful because some of the formatting doesn't come through. The highlighting seems to be working quite nicely now. It wasn't before, so that's good. I think they fixed that. Cool beans. All right. So let's see how to actually create one of these reports. Again, you select what you want to do. In this case, it's a code review between two versions of the same application. It remembers what I put in before. You notice that there's options here. You can say whether you want line numbers. You can say what to do if there's a new file, whether to list the file names only, which makes for a shorter report, which is handy if you end up with such a lot of changes that the report is very long. You've also got some other options here. Now, all these options are in the configuration that we created to say, what does it mean that we want to do a code review? So you can change this. You might care about UNIDs for your application, so you can check this. And again, if there's a common set of different configurations you want to use, then you can create your own and say, if you have this kind of submission, use this to create your report. I'm not going to go in detail on all those because I don't have time, but I'm going to just go ahead and, in this case, I can, if I'm just doing it for my reference, or if it's easier to do a code review meeting in this way, I can launch a diff tool, a program that's installed on my computer to compare files on my computer. And you'll notice here it's going to export. Look at the bottom for the status bar. You get a progress bar. And I am launching Beyond Compare so that I can see, so it exported one side into a temporary folder, the other side into another temporary folder, and it's just comparing the folders recursively. So again, I can go in and see what was the difference. Alternately, I can just create, and I can save these files off if I wanted to have a reference copy of the total design before and after, or I can create the report, which of course doesn't contain all the design info because it'll just show you some context here and ... for stuff that it omitted. Now, again, there's no way for us at the moment to say, oh, okay, well, I'm doing a Git submission. Git should just generate this report automatically and include it. That would be nice, but right now we're just saying the developer has to do it. It's probably a good idea for them to look at it anyway, because for myself, when I was doing submissions, I generally found that looking at the difference report showed me some things that I had forgotten or done by accident. And so I would go back and modify it further before I actually submitted. So again, though, now this I haven't saved yet. I could say it's not in a repository if I just wanted a reference report for whatever. I'm going to talk a little bit about the configuration of this tool now. I don't want to save that. Uh-oh, that crashed. So let me talk for a little bit while it's coming back. As the administrator, I can go in and change some things, but also as an end user, I can. The Beyond Compare tool was used because I had selected it. And I'm going to see if I can launch notes again here.
Hey, Andre, this is Howard. If you could start to wrap it up, we're about 10 to 12.
Yep, I'm almost done. I'll go back to the slides. But basically, some of the things that you can change here, you can merge text runs or not, as mentioned earlier. You can set it to flag all strings with a special highlight, because this is useful when you're looking at translations. You can export documents instead of just design elements, and you can specify which documents. I talked about that. You can tell it to ignore case differences if you've got a whole bunch of them. You can compare UNIDs, which is important for versions of a template, because if the UNID changes, that can cause some problems where the new version of a template replicates with the old version of a template, and a form has a different UNID, and so you get two copies of the form because they don't match each other. But the default options are generally good. You don't mess with them unless there's a problem or unless you want to create your custom configuration. The help using document talks about all the different options and gives examples of how to write all the special formulas and stuff to identify which documents match with which other documents. And there's also a ton of advanced Lotus script code in there that you can browse. I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of them come from the Lotus script Gold collection in the OpenNTF project. but a lot of them are new stuff for doing string comparisons, for getting the data from a file-based design element, that sort of thing. And that's all I had to say about that.
Hey, thanks, Andre. I like that last slide. That looks like there might be some cool LotusScript stuff in there, since we're supposed to go back to LotusScript.
Just
I wouldn't
quickly,
encourage you to,
John, Andre, that's a standard template that's available in what version of Domino?
1201, and it's on the server. I wanted to make it part of the Domino Designer client, but that didn't work out. Maybe in the future it will be.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, John, we're making you the presenter.
Can you see
and
my
we see your screen?
It's exciting. You're looking at my
Your My Files project, OneDrive.
OneDrive massive storage. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to present mostly demos, because this is a dupe of a presentation I did for the factory tour last month. So here's the agenda. I'm not going to cover it all. I'm going to try to focus on the demos. Of course, Domino Query Language, query result processing, the two biggest pieces of application work we've done in the core Domino. And there are some raw core Domino improvements. I may or may not get to those. We'll see. I'm going to talk quickly, so if you don't catch anything, you can stop the video. Basically, that's what's going to happen. Okay, so in 12.0x, we have done, this covers multiple versions of Domino. We've done embedded formula language. We've done named document sets, design document queries are coming, and embedded full text query syntax is coming as well. So to show you this, the formula language, you're seeing my screen or not, you're seeing the, somehow I'm seeing the presentation stuff. Yeah, there we go. So add FL or add formula lets you specify within a single quote a set of formula language terms you can do. There's basically two ways to do it. One is, you see the first example does a two-sided, field equals value, field greater than value syntax. The one below does a unary operator, which basically says true or false. If that add formula turns out to be true, we'll have a hit for the document, else we won't. Of course, there's a huge library of existing functionality you can grab. This does force NSS scanning. We don't do this any other way, so that's how it happens. Okay, next. So it does combine with any other syntactic element of DQL. You can and or and not and all those things. It does use for the binary, the two-sided example, that the third example on the page here in blue, the question mark val1 does do substitution, so you can do that. We don't do a substitution inside the unary operator, the third one down. So 256 byte maximum, that's one limitation we have. And yes, this completes pretty much the search options in Domino and DQL. You can do it all. That's basically the claim here we're talking about. Okay, now there's a feature I didn't really just go into enough and really highlight enough in our prior talks regarding this, something we delivered in 12.01, and that's called the named result set. So this basically, it uses DQL and stores the results in a named set. So you can basically say the in clause, you can pull it in. If you say in my set in this case, you see the example there, is a set of documents I've run against and I've created as using DQL to do that. I'm going to demonstrate this. DQL will generate my set, and you can put it in the in clause here and bring it in, and it's much, much faster. So I show you a long-running query, and I'm going to show you some of those. Say this query takes, you don't have any full text indexes, no views, nothing. I just want to pass these documents and record the set of documents found with the syntax, like the one you have here. That might well take you, an hour to run, whatever. I'm exaggerating here, but there is no need for views of full text index. I just want to say you don't need views to do this, and it's still very, very fast. So that is its claim to fame. It's 100 times, 1,000 times faster. Lots of usage details. The use cases, if you have a set of documents you're asking about all day, well, do it once and save it, that kind of thing. They are static. They do not refresh automatically. They do not replicate, but they are very, very fast. That's the point. So there's a database limit, and they do expire. But again, you can make them expire 1 year from now if you want. But that's up to you to how you do it. Okay, and in 1201, we do allow you to actually store them as part of the DQL, the Domino Query object. We actually add a result name and whether it's replaced, whether it's expire hours. Again, result name is a unique name for this document set. Replace tells you how, if you are to replace one that exists, and the expired hours is how long, excuse me, until the document set is discarded. Okay, and you can use updal to control these, to manipulate them as a set of sets. So basically delete one if you want to delete the name. You can do it through backend code as well, but the idea is you can specify in updal a set of manipulations, even a generated report of the name document sets you have already. And then of course the backend lets you remove all all name query results, so you can just destroy them all for a database. Yeah, let me at this point go right into the here we go, right into the demo. Okay, so we're looking here at a set of, I hope you can read this. This is Java code. It's using the backend classes to create a Domino query. That's what this DQ is here. That is basically executing this result name. So I'm specifying on the way into this what the result name is. I'm specifying the query, and I'm reporting, you see this, how long it took to come out. Okay, how long it took to produce. So I'm going to show you the output of this. I'm not going to wait. We don't have time to wait for that. So I'm going to show you the output of that, which I ran earlier before the talk. These are, I guess, 200,000 documents. Took 14 seconds. That's usually longer than people want to wait for results. And it stored the results away in TrudyDocs. You see Trudy 8, and this, again, the FL syntax forces NSF scanning. So I'm basically saying I don't need a view. I don't need a full text index. I'm going to do some full text, some NSF scanning to produce the results, etc. I did 5 sets of documents that are part of this. Now I'm going to now run some queries against those, I think. If I get there. My demos are all command line stuff. I don't apologize for that. And they crash sometimes. That's part of what I do as well. So I actually have a blog entry saying my demos crash, and it's I'm quite proud of that. So let me show you this running. Okay, these are going to run, ignore the extra noise, but you can see it. What I generate here is the output of explain in DQL. If you're not familiar with that, there's lots of stuff written about it. But you see what we're doing here. So we're combining the in clause now has these sets that I stored, and I'm running live queries against these. So this one at the beginning, this in TrudyDocs solution stack says if it's in either one of these, I want it in the found set. And that took 136 milliseconds. Again, 14 seconds to create that. There's 131 milliseconds to now use it. Likewise, there's in all does a intersection. So I want documents that are in both of these. That's going to find no documents because they're not compatible. There's only one salesperson per document. But it took a whopping 1 millisecond to find that out. Yes, then we do some more. I do another in all. This actually does find some documents. This says, okay, I want the all view. Use the all view along with TrudyDocs. So it's a mix. So the in clause here, if you're not familiar with it, look it up. The in clause handles both that found set called TrudyDocs and the all view. So all those documents that are in TrudyDocs and the view are used here in 96 milliseconds to return those results. Likewise, yeah, the same query. I'm sorry about that. But here we go. Now I'm intersecting. I'm saying I want, if it's in any of these found sets I want to return those values. And that took a second to return against all those. It basically does an OR of all those. It finds 47,000 documents. But the point is, you don't need a full text index. You don't need a view to do this. They are very quick to retrieve. And you can now, I could now use this query to basically create another set of documents which have, I say, all this, my choice salespeople's, my choice salespeople documents. and that becomes another set I can use. So you can basically use a found set to produce another found set. Okay, so lots of questions you may have about that, but that's really what we have. I want to make sure you demo that. You can see the gain, what we can provide for in a very quick way. Okay, real coming in 1203, or they're calling it 14 now. I'm not sure what they're calling it. But what we're going to do is allow design document queries. It's a query level setting. You're either looking for data or design. So DQL will let you do that. Okay, oops, might as well present, huh? Yeah, I think so. Hold on, there we go. Yeah, we're going to allow for embedded full text searches. In other words, these are full text, you have full text syntax you already use. We're going to make use of that. You can paste those right into DQL. Again, it's going to integrate perfectly with DQL Boolean functionality. Oops, that was fast. Yeah, so that's the end. No, sorry. Too fast. Sorry about that. Let me go back. Right. Okay, so QRP is the next topic. And I wanted to make sure we covered that. QRP is Query Result Processor. You'll hear me talk about that. I just did a demo for you. Query Result Processor is a way to handle the output of DQL. DQL by itself produces a document collection. That is not data. That is just a set of documents you can fetch data with. Now, you can certainly use that in a document collection, notes document collection, to pull those documents in and manipulate them as your heart's desire. But DQL was built in order to support a better way of retrieving results, and one that spans databases. Okay, that's why it was invented. There's a lot of documentation. I did 3 blog entries about this you can look on. I'll show you that slide in a minute. It gives you the links. And you know, the idea is that when you create views in Designer, what do you need? You need selection criteria and columns. Same thing with QRP views, okay? Except they allow you to specify selection criteria for each set of documents. So you can do a selection criteria per source, per database, or per found set. That's the DQL. And then you can compute the column rules for each set of documents. Likewise, you say a different computation. I'll show you a demo that goes through that. They're different, they span databases, and the query results are not refreshable. You can't replicate them yet. Okay, next. Yeah, view copy. So I'm going to demonstrate this, version 14. It will allow you basically to copy a QRP from a custom design. All the graphics, all the rich text attributes are retained, and you can be additive. You can add a column, you can override column titles. I'll show you that. You can change the column sort, categorization, hidden attributes. Okay, let's show you that. So you're going to see that I'm not a designer on purpose. I give you an ugly design just because you can see that I don't do window dressing. It's not what I do. I'm a command line guy. But you see this view, it's ugly, yes, ugly on purpose. And but you see the name of these things, it's called column A. Well, it doesn't mean anything to anybody, right? Column A, and I have the textual colors and rich text attributes of the column, the names on top, and the display data. The column A, the formula is non-existent. There's no column A in the databases I'm going to query. Likewise, column B, same thing. It's a separate column. It has its own attributes. We retain those. And this is actually a column without a name. This column has no name. I'm going to put description in it, and that's going to be there. In other words, I'm going to override the formula and the output data. Okay, so let's show you the code that manipulates that. I'll demonstrate that running now, I think, on a good day. It'll run. I think we have this in hand. Yes, we do. Okay, so I'm going to run this in Eclipse. It's F11. Yep, there we go. All right, so I'm going to show you this code as it runs and explain it to you roughly what's going on here. There's a lot, and again, I've written about this extensively, so you see that there are there's a lot of documentation out there. This particular QRP run contains 6 different databases that are participating in the view. They're basically generating the view. You see, I've got this. It's actually a mail database. I've got the parts database. I have 4 separate order databases coming in. So these are the repositories that are coming in. The query coming in is part no equals. That's what it is. It contains the certain part no. Part no is this. The idea with this QRP, this particular view is that you're trying to find problems or data concerning a problematic part. Okay, so I'm going to run this. Let's go to the next point. Yep. So this is the place where you override the column A. You saw the column A, B, and C. Yep. Well, we're using that to override the titles. So document type should be the title that comes out, and that should be, and I specify how to order them. Okay, and that's going to run. I am now manipulating below this. The formulas are now saying, look, for column B, I want you to put, I want you to basically generate the male as a male is a literal from, this is a formula. So the formula becomes the first thing you generate. Column C, that sort of thing. And the second argument here is the name of the result set that you specified above. Okay, again, this is documented a lot. I don't have time to dive here into that. I can certainly do this. So this is the magic call. This is the one that exists in 14 only. Base view 3 is what we're copying from. So that's going to run. It's going to pull that design in. It's going to create this other. It's going to demo 7 is an. I keep on generating these, but demo 7, OpenNTF demo 7, and the name of the part is the name of the output view. So I'm going to run that. On a good day, it will run. Yep, it ran. It's a good day, and it's okay. So let me just show you now. Let me finish this. Just get out of here. Okay, so to open it up inside the client, you can see that we have this, and we recommend for good reason. Recommend for a good reason that you use a dedicated database to keep your results in. Okay, so I'm going to do this cube restore, and there they are. These are hidden. Okay, these hidden documents, and there it is. I'm going to open that view now. Ugly, right? Yeah, really. Are you kidding? Yeah, it is ugly. So that I just wanted to show you that we retain the ugliness. It's very good. Okay, so the part number shows up here. Again, you've got the 3 different repositories, mail, the order database, and the part number itself. You can click on any of these. It will open up the document at the end of the rainbow. See, this document is another database. It opens that up. Likewise, this as well, Malcolm Disney's order that contains that as well. So the idea is you have it all out there. It behaves like a normal view. People have complained a bit that we don't allow you to do document properties. You're right, because there is no document behind that in this database. It's in another database. If that is something people want, and I think it is, you should probably tell the client team. We can probably keep ACL's feet to the fire to deliver that on the client team. But we do let you open them. So that's the deal coming in. So 6 different databases are part of this view now. You can keep this view as long as you want, or toss it if you don't want it. But that's the idea. Okay. So that's part of that demo I wanted to make sure. Now to blitz through a little bit of the slides just to finish some of the thoughts. Again, you can do this. This is a slide I've had for the last 3 years talking about the so-called query bus. That's the idea that we picture. This is how DQL works and how you see QRP coming in. And we delivered on all these things, okay? So good. Reading materials, as I mentioned, I have 3 separate laborious demonstrations and documentation for each of these. People have asked questions. I'll be glad to answer the questions on my blog, okay? And I just showed you that. Now, so core improvement, this is one of those that I wanted to talk about real briefly. There's a logjam that has been around at Domino forever. I've worked on it personally for a long time, and this has to do with a lot of when there are many users against a large view, and there's lots of updating. There's a logjam that happens inside the view refresh. Refresh really means update to us because it doesn't refresh. In every case here, the red ones, the red threads, think of that as those as people who are trying to refresh their view. They block the green ones. The green ones are waiting for the red ones to finish their business, and they don't run. This is why people have to wait a long time. And you can see what's happening here is that the T1, look at the T1, it only concerns really the 1049.01 changes, yet it wakes up and applies everything all the way to 1049.05, etc. And so the lag goes to the right there. You see that? This is what we did. We said, no, just have the red threads take care of their own business and let the other threads come in. So it basically responds faster. This is the fix. The results are quite breathtaking. This shows 2 things. This is 100,000 more view opens. The database is 5 million documents in size. we blasted it with updates, and this is not nice. It's basically I am guilty of server abuse. So this is firing. The blue one is 1201 and earlier. The orange one is 1202. You can see that we are staying. Most people have a 5-second SLA, that kind of thing. We're accomplishing that now. We did not accomplish it before. The other story is this is a timed test, 2 hours, and you see how much more work we got done with 1202. So there's two dimensions to this, and it is a breakthrough. There's no question about that. Okay, Domino improvements. This is no real announcement. It's just saying these are kind of skunk works we're looking at. And as their sharding is in the pipeline, we're actually working at it to improve compacts and backups. Optimize reader lists, likewise, is another project that's in the queue. We're working on that as well. Okay, real fast. There is the ability to read and write large summaries inside of 1202 in the backend classes. The ability to turn it on has been there for a long time. You have to upgrade to ODS 55 using the Create R12 database. Once you do that, and this is an a compact statement to do that, you now have a new limit, okay, which is a 16 megabyte total document summary, and that's it. That is the cumulative maximum size of all summary fields. There is no other limit. There's one little one on lists I'll talk about, but that's it. You have 16 megabytes to play with, and you can store data that the cumulative data can store up that size. So the 64K and 32K messages kind of go away. What you get is the reading and writing large fields and long field lists. Lists still have a maximum of 64K entries. That's entries, that's not bytes, but the total list size is still bounded by that 16 meg size. And it works with summary and non-summary fields. Yeah, and all the notes item methods just work. Okay, that's all it is. So the overall size is supported by dynamic array type and vector in LotusScript. Okay, so that's that. Encrypt and decrypt. This is the extension on what we have offered before. The encryption strength is well known. We're just letting you do this in a programmatic way. You can come back and the deferred option say, next time I open the database, it will do the deed. Otherwise, it will do it live while you wait. Of course, that's going to take some time. And that's it. I'm amazed I finished, and we can move on to something else now. So let's see if I can find.
Thanks, John.
John, that was fantastic. I think to all of our presenters, I really appreciate your time and apologize. we managed to shoehorn 3 excellent presentations into one time slot when everybody probably could have used more time. So I apologize for making you all go fast, but thank you again. Go ahead, Howard.
Okay, just a reminder, if you want to ask questions, you can use the GoToWebinar questions pane. We have a number of questions queued up for our presenters. And
actually, you know what? Sorry, before we flip the questions, Andre, you had your demo kind of cut short. We've got a few minutes here. Do you want to show that, or are you able to show that? Did your machine come back on you? And I'll.
Yeah, I could show a couple things if people are interested. I've got just here. I'm going to start up the notes client again.
Let's do that. We've got a couple of minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, you're the presenter. I think you should see that, Andre.
Yeah, hang on. I'm just moving things off of that screen. Show my screen. Number 2. How's that? See it?
Yep.
Yes, we do.
All right. So going back to my workspace, then I just want to show some configuration things. So under as the application administrator, this is how I would configure what your source code control system is, source code control system and task tracking. So right here, this example has just one JIRA system. And so I write a formula that uses the field ID to control where you go when you click one of those links. This is not a real one, so I can't demonstrate it. This is how you do it. Here's an example of a formula that tests the ID value to decide which system it came from. So in the case of HCL, we had an SPR database And so it would, the formula there tests to see if what the ID looks like an SPR number. And if it is, then it uses the notes format @server, @file path, @view plus the ID to search for that and open it. And otherwise it would use a URL for a JIRA system. For the source code control systems, you can have a list of them, and all of those are assumed to use URLs. Here was the setup for a workstation. There are a couple things here. One is you can say which source code, which difference tool you want to use. It knows how to find them. It knows the arguments for these top three, and if you wanted to change it, then you can just go in here and put whatever you want if you happen to know what command line arguments you want better than the automatic selections. You also notice if you have a source code control system in a local fixed view, then there's probably folders where you don't want to modify the files in them by accident. And if you open a notes database using the notes API, it's technically a modification on the file system level. So you want to not change those files. And so if you put, these are the default values. If you put folder names in here, then it knows that this is a Git repository or other type of directory where you don't want to modify those files if you're just looking at them. And so when it goes to do a compare or a synopsis, it'll copy the file to a temporary location and run it on there instead to avoid Git picking it up and saying, oh, you need to check this in. The other thing is I wanted to show for the compare types, these are the same options that you can set in the compare itself. And if you're doing a comparison, you've got all these same checkboxes here. They're just not under an advanced tab. This is just what you want to do. So if you don't care what template something comes from, generally you do this if you just get too many differences of a type that you don't care about for your particular application. You can go in, modify this, or create a new one. That's about it. That was all I wanted to show.
Awesome,
Right.
thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Andre.
let's switch over to questions.
Go ahead, Graham. I'm gonna just pull up the.
Sure. Well, tell you what, while we're just getting the question thing going here, I wanted to just share appreciation for everybody that's presented. Andre, of course, noted that he has retired, but has made numerous contributions to the community over the years. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come and share more with the community. But I also want to call out John. John got shoehorned into this presentation because he is going to retire in a couple of weeks from HCL. And we wanted to make sure that we got this last presentation in. So John, thank you for everything you've done for the community and your enthusiasm, both in what you're building and how you're sharing the information. So I really appreciate you making the time to come and share with us today too.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Great. Congratulations to both of you. Okay, we got some questions here lined up. The first is for Julian. The advanced properties, the any settings, Lothar wants to know, is that server side? And also, if you're searching for a profile document and it's disabled, what happens if they try to use it on a local replica?
Julian's on mute.
Yes.
There, you should be unmuted.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I was clicking that button so many times and it wouldn't unmute me. That was like a hard mute. Yeah, so it is a client-side setting. So you have to have that notes INI setting on the client to affect the functionality of the document properties thing. And also, if you have the profile document piece disabled, it's disabled across the board. So that's server, local, any database that you open with that client. It's just kind of all or nothing sort of thing.
Okay,
Okay,
next one here is a feature suggestion, or maybe it's there and we didn't see it, but when a field is selected in the info pane, show the modified date of the field.
So actually, I think that is information that's not available to me at the API level. If I remember correctly, I actually tried to get that information and was unable to. But I'll take a look again.
I
So
think
I'll
all
take
of
that
us
back.
over the years have been asked to build some kind of a notes application that tells us when a particular field got changed.
That's right. Well, and the thing is that information does exist, just not from the Java API. And so
There you go.
I'm kind of limited to what I can do with the Java API. But I'll
okay.
write that down.
We have a question from Tom Van Aken. Is it possible to add the number of values in the field list? This would be interesting for multi-value fields.
I think I could add that. I'll put that on my list as well. I mean, I know how many items are there, so.
Okay, and another one that I think all of us has run into, the dialog properties lists all fields in a document rather than just 255 field limitation in the standard document properties box.
To be honest, I have no idea. I don't think I have any documents with that many fields on them. You'll have to try.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
He said he has documents with over 1,000 fields.
Oh man, okay. Well, let me know, I guess.
Okay.
And we have a comment from Tom Van Aken again. The QRP demo is certainly something that is really interesting. Can't wait to try this out. So not a question, but I just wanted to pass it on to you, John.
Plus in 1201, certainly the 1201 features there. It's, as I said, visit the blog for detailed documentation. And yeah, people have it in production, so go for it.
I've actually got a question for Andre, or at least maybe more of a comment. You know, certainly Julian demonstrated, in fact, all of you guys have demonstrated that just your experience working with Notes and Domino for a long time brought out those things that were like, I wish I could do this a little bit different, or I wish I could get more information. And Andre, as you were presenting, and you're muted, I think yourself, but what really struck me about yours was the design synopsis and how I think at least the devs in the room and probably some admins too have run into the design synopsis challenge of trying to search through and find things. So I'm just curious about sort of your thinking in terms of what you built and how that could be, I guess, more augmented in terms of what we have out of the box or have had out of the box for years with the design synopsis.
Well, I mean, this is out of the box in the sense that it's part of the server install now.
Well, new, right? New compared to what we had before.
Yeah. I'm not sure I understand the question.
So I'm just curious if it was one of those sort of grinding your teeth and where you were able to look and go, okay, if I could rebuild the design synopsis, this is how I would do it. I'm assuming the answer is yes, but I'm just kind of curious on the design process.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of it. I mean, I was aware that it had languished for a long time and that it was a function that would be useful if people wanted it. But mostly it was that the main impetus was to do this design compare. And I realized, well, you know, this is easy to do also. As long as we're exporting the whole description, we might as well provide the function to export one description and not compare it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
What's that last one?
We have a question from Susanna. She wants to know, as an admin with the Document Profile Pro version, do the changes made with the edit button update the form in Designer?
No, they do not. It's only documents. So it's whichever document you happen to have selected. So it's really just the same thing as writing an agent that would update or change a field in the document. It's just kind of a different interface. But yeah, it's only the document, not the form.
Okay, thanks, Julian. And
okay, and our last question on the board here is a question for John. The view design copy for query results processor, is that 1203 or 1202?
Let me get off mute. Yes, mute again.
You are off mute.
Yeah,
We can hear you.
unmute early and often. You have to unmute a lot. Yeah, you can hear me now, right?
Yes.
We can hear you. Yeah.
That's exciting. Okay, so yeah, 1203 or 14, whatever they're calling, is the place where the view design is copied. You can today in 1201 we will ship. You can use the QRP and it will can basically a canned set of results. So basically in 1201, if you don't care about the design, you can go ahead and use it, and like reading it from a program or from the web. The design properties are not really part of that. The client is what we're really aimed at with 1203 or 14, whatever they're going to call it. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
I think that's it, but we do want to point out a number of people left comments for Andre and John. First of all, for all three of you, thanks for the great presentation, but also best of luck for Andre and John. A number of people commented about that. So just wanted to pass that on to you two guys. And
I've got one more thing to add. CollabSphere is next week, and there are going to be lots of really good presentations there. OpenNTF is participating in a couple of open source roundtables. So for people who haven't heard about CollabSphere or have forgotten that it's going on, it is happening next week. Collabsphere.org, I think, is the website to go to, and get yourself registered, because there's lots of good community content coming up next week.
Very good. Well, thanks everyone for attending, and a big thanks to our three presenters who did an awesome job today. And we look forward to seeing everyone at the November webinar.
Thank you.